And good morning or good afternoon if you guys have been sleeping in. And it's been a long time, Bulldogs. I miss seeing you guys around. I can't wait till you all get back. Hopefully, it'll be sooner than later. Um, but we're going to jump right on in and we're going to talk about some cool stuff, starting with Africa. Africa is one of my favorite continents. If you ever get a chance to go, you should check it out. It's very different from top to bottom. From the north is completely different than, say, the south, and the west is a whole lot different than the east. I got to spend a summer in West Africa where I lived with a tribe and lived in the jungle. It was an awesome, awesome experience. Some crazy things happened there. Matter of fact, I nearly died by the time I got back, and it was a awesome experience. I would love to go again, and I can't wait till we jump on into Africa. So let's look at a couple of things about Africa. I'm going to pull up a map here. Let's see. I could pull up this map and hopefully you're looking at this map of Africa even right now as we speak. With that being said, let me go ahead and show you a little bit about it. Here's North Africa. North Africa is home to the world's largest desert. Up here in this area is the Sahara Desert. So you have a lot of these countries that you're familiar with, such as Egypt. I know you're really, really familiar with Egypt. Matter of fact, over 98% of all the people who live in Egypt live right along the longest river in the entire world. And what is that? Come on, you guys can think about it. Think about it. I know you know it. You can't think of it. I know you are in denial because I know you know it. Hopefully you got it because that was a hint. The name of the river is the Nile. The Nile River flows from way down here all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea. And that's where the great majority of people live in Egypt, right along there. Why? Because the rest of Egypt is a desert. It's a tough place to live. But this whole entire part of Africa, North Africa, is a desert. Below the deserts, as you start leaving the desert, there's an area called the Sahel. And the Sahel is the area where the desert starts to turn into grasslands. Or in Africa, we would call them savannas. Remember, we talked about it in Russia. The grasslands are called the steppe. In North America, we would call them the prairies or the plains, the Great Plains. But whenever we're talking about the grasslands in Africa, we're talking about the savannas. So that is the savannas. Most of the people in Africa live below the Sahel, which is right underneath the Sahara Desert. And so they live mainly down here. Right over here is where I spent a summer at. This little country right here is called Côte d'Ivoire. In English, we would call it the Ivory Coast. But because this entire area of West Africa, a lot of the countries over here still speak French to this day. And the official language in Côte d'Ivoire is French. And so Côte d'Ivoire means to us the Ivory Coast. And this is where I lived, like I said, for that one summer. And it was amazing. Right below that, right about here, is where we have the equator. So the equator runs through. Matter of fact, there's a little country right here. That little yellow country right here is called Equatorial Guinea, which means that's where the equator is kind of running through right there. Let's look at a couple of these countries, and I'll name them for you. You can see Libya at the very top. Next to that is Egypt. Below that is Sudan, Ethiopia. This is Somalia over here. This is called the Horn of Africa. It's kind of like a horn of a rhino. This is the Horn of Africa. If you go back to the middle of Africa, the very average and boring name, some people say, most boring name in Africa is just plain old Chad. Chad, Africa. But the rest of them have some pretty unique names. Maybe it's Mali, maybe it's Nigeria. This one right here, the profile looks like a kangaroo, but it's called Cameroon. Some other countries down here you're probably familiar with are Kenya or Uganda. You have right here in the middle the Democratic Republic of Congo. Matter of fact, right above it is the Central African Republic, also known as just CAR, Central African Republic. Down here, you have some other ones, such as South Africa. Where is South Africa? Well, it's in the very bottom, of course, of Africa, South Africa. Also notice there's a couple of little countries right in the middle of South Africa right here, completely surrounded by South Africa, a country all to itself called Lesotho, and another one called Swaziland. Here are some other cool names like Botswana or Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Tanzania, and of course, we're all familiar with the island of Madagascar. All right, so let's see if we can go back to the video, and if I can figure out how to do that. Let me go down here. Sorry for the delay. Oh, I'm so sorry for this delay. I don't know how to do this, but what you're going to be working on today is you're going to read chapter 18, section 1. It's only a couple of pages, 418 or 415 to 418. Can you believe it? We're in the 400s of our book. So pages 415 to 418, you're going to read through those pages, and then you're going to do the assignment that's going to be attached to this. A couple things you need to know about Africa. Obviously, in the north, you've got a massive desert. Right in the middle, you have the equator. But the entire continent really is a continent of plateaus. It comes from the oceans, and it works its way up, and it goes into some plateaus. And in between there are going to be some basins or some rift valleys and some massive mountains. As a matter of fact, not too far from the equator is a massive mountain that is snow-capped pretty much all year long, called Mount Kilimanjaro. Pretty amazing stuff. Even though it's right next to the equator, it's a mountain with snow on it. But also Africa has a ton of resources, a lot of resources. And so you're going to read a little bit about that. There's going to be an attachment. All you got to do is kind of read through that section 1 of chapter 18, and then fill in those blanks. This is an awesome continent. Hopefully we're going to learn a whole lot about it. We're going to go through it pretty quick though, since you're not here and I can't share as much as I want to with you. But if you do get back in time and we do have some time to do this, I'm going to share some really cool stories about Africa. So have a great day. Y'all take care, and we'll see you later.